Welcome to the latest episode of the NLA podcast. Today, we're going to be finalizing our 5 challenges leaders face. Today, we're going to be speaking on nurturing a culture of innovation and continuous improvement. I am your host, Dr. Amin Sanaia, leaderologist, thought leader, and author. As usual, I have the privilege of being joined by my tag team partner, Tanner Thorp.
Yeah, my man, Dr. Amin. Yeah, this is Tanner Thorp, human being, culture warrior, thought leader, change agent, and lover of all things leadership and growing leaders. I'm so excited for this one.
It was funny because people don't know we don't actually have to do a lot of background work or do a lot of research when we do our podcast, because this is stuff that we've done and we do day in, day out. And
Yep.
it is so cool to be able to speak on the work that we do. So when me and Tanner are texting about, he's asking me, okay, what are we going to talk about? And I send him a text. Today's going to be nurturing a culture of innovation and continuous improvement. Uh, 4 words.
We
got
we
that.
we got this. Oh, we got this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was so funny, but I mean, it's just we love what we do. That's why. So it's so cool.
Absolutely. You know, and you know, we've had a lot of conversations on this podcast so far in these 5 episodes, but this one, I mean, this one's our wheelhouse. I mean, this is all about culture,
Oh yeah.
you know, and how do you grow a culture of continuous improvement and growth? And yeah, I can't wait to dig into this one.
It's going to be fun. And so, just a brief intro for people that are joining us for the first time, or those that have joined for a couple. We've been going through 5 challenges a leaders face. Go back to the previous episode so you can listen to some of those conversations. And this one, we look at that continuous improvement just itself can be one big old topic, but innovation to be added on to it, it's pretty cool. So when you see leaders, in order for them to thrive in this competitive landscape that we have now, I mean, you see that organizations are equipped, they're armed with so much information, analytics, technologies just taking over. You have to have an edge, and for leaders, they have to be able to foster a culture where innovation thrives, because it's not going to work by itself. You can have all the gadgets, you can have all the newest tools, the newest softwares, but it's not going to go anywhere if you don't have that culture where people are allowed to really think outside the box, try things. And that's where continuous improvement and really we're going to dive into some of those fun things. So let's go into our first question so that we can get this party started.
Yeah. So right before you ask this, I
Mhm.
just want to say something. You know, innovation is like kindness. It never goes out of style.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah,
Innovation
kindness
is
never
like
goes out of style, right?
no,
Like
no, it doesn't.
it's never going to, you know. And innovation's the same way; it's never going to go out of style. But ask the question. I got some fun thoughts
Woo!
to share.
This is gonna be on. Now I see that. Oh, I better bring my A game here. Okay, so
You always
innovation.
do.
We both do. Innovation requires a culture that embraces experimentation and learning from failure. How can leaders foster a culture that encourages risk taking and views failures as opportunities for growth rather than setbacks?
So I think the first thing that we have to talk about is you have to know what your core product is, whatever that is,
Okay.
and you can't deviate too much from that core product because that's the foundation. Now, how do you grow the other products that you want to have work with that product? So one of my favorite stories right now, and it's a super quick one, but we've seen this explosion of the Stanley Cups, right?
Yep.
And me growing up, like there was only one Stanley Cup. I grew up in a household that was all about hockey. And my stepdad, I mean, he grew up in Montreal, Quebec, with the Montreal Canadiens, the winningest team ever in the NHL. He would tell me stories about the legends like Jean Beliveau and Guy Lafleur and what they would do when they won the Stanley Cup. And the cool thing about the Stanley Cup is when you win that trophy, every person in the organization that wins that trophy gets that cup for a day. You can do what you want, and now it's way protected. Like,
yes,
but it used to be you could do whatever you want. And he'd tell me stories about like Guy Lafleur leaving it on his front lawn and crazy stuff. But that's not the Stanley Cup I'm talking about. The Stanley Cup I'm talking about is the one that Starbucks just partnered with, and people are lining up outside of Target forever to get one of them. But here's the fun part of that story. Did you know that Stanley has been around for over 100 years?
No, I didn't know that.
Neither did I until a couple weeks ago. I was reading an article on how this thing just blew up. And so they had a core product. Stanley has a core product. They've always made these like really great insulated products, right? Okay. But then they figured out how to reach a target niche. It started with colors and social media marketing. Yeah. So a product that, I mean, has been around forever, got a little innovated with their core product and said, okay, we know we've got a good product. We've always had a good product. It's tried and true. It lasts forever, but we need to get it into the mass market somehow. They started marketing it in Dick's Sporting Goods. They started marketing it with different colors that they knew that would appeal to all demographics. They started marketing it on social media. Tag us in your social media. And all of a sudden, boom. It's kind of like that Cristiano Ronaldo story. It took me 17 years to become an overnight success. Everybody calls him an overnight success. Oh, this guy came out of nowhere. Well, no, he honed his craft for 17 years. So when we're talking about innovation and we're talking about, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
When we're talking about innovation, we can't take our eyes off what our core product is. Then we have to use creative tools, and whether those tools are technology, whether those tools are marketing, whether those tools are innovative designs, we have to remain true to what the core product is. And we can't go so far off the rails that we get away from that core product that it could actually cause detrimental damage to the brand. And so, you think about, that Simon Sinek speech that he gave on Infinite Mindset.
Yes.
Where he talks about Apple being the one to revolutionize the music industry by creating the iPod. But Microsoft tried to do the same thing. They created the Zune. And I remember I actually had a Zune. And it was nowhere near.
Oh my God, I totally remember that.
Yeah, it was nowhere. I mean, the Zune's become a joke. It was the new so in Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord had the Sony Walkman, and then it transitioned to the Zune, right? It wasn't the iPod, but that's an example of a company understanding its core demographics and where it should be. Microsoft was never going to be in the music industry. They were just trying to compete with Apple.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where, I mean, to your point, that's where organizations, number one, before you even get to that piece that you mentioned about the core product and staying within your core product, I think the first step to that is understanding your culture, your values.
Mm.
So there are organizations that they'll tell you, within their mission, vision, their values, that they embrace innovation.
Hmm.
So those organizations are always thriving. They're always trying new things because
Yeah.
that is at the core of their of who they are. Now, there's organizations that don't do that, uh, but they are more corporate like, structure like that. This is how we do things, and they really don't get out of the box of how they do things. The organizations that really make changes to our world, to what we do on an everyday basis, they're innovators. They're thinkers. They're the ones that say, you know what, let's try something else. But they actually do try, because there are organizations that'll say, oh, I'm going to try something. No, no, no. They're the people that are innovators, that are risk takers. They go all in. There is no backing out. There's no escape plan. Is we're going to go all in. And that's the only way to truly do innovation, is by that. What do you think about that?
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, love him or hate him, Elon Musk has gone all in on innovation.
Mhm.
I mean, he said it from the beginning. He said, "Look, this is what I'm all about. Whether I succeed or fail, I'm going to know that I did everything within my power to do the things that I'm passionate about, and I'm going to hire the people who have the same passions as me, and I'm going to find ways to continually innovate and grow and adjust. And I mean, look at what the guy's doing. Again, love or hate him as a person,
Yeah.
personality, that's completely separate from the innovation piece and that willingness to fail. And you're absolutely right. The companies that say that they're going to go all in on innovation,
Mhm.
usually they have a plan around what that innovation looks like and their
Mhm.
margin for error. So, they're not going to put all of their eggs in one basket, but they are going to dedicate a certain amount of resources to this is what we're going to do to innovate. And they have to believe deeply that what they're trying to innovate towards
Mhm.
is going to change whatever they're intending to change.
Yeah. So one of the things that I remember reading, because I like to read about certain topics, and innovation is something that it's very near and dear to my heart, because I do want to keep up with the changing times. Is that the companies that are really good at innovations, they act the leaders in those organizations. They create innovation labs or spaces that are just dedicated for people to go experiment. How cool is that?
And I mean, really, that's the way it should be. If you say you're going to be an innovator, I mean, look at look at the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, if you're really trying to cure something, you're going to fail a lot of times before you get there. But you have to dedicate a lab. You have to dedicate resources.
Absolutely.
You have to dedicate a high margin of error. And so the second part of that question was, how do we embrace failures?
Oh yeah, that's yeah. Let's go down
You know,
that
so
that
so
venture.
yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit. If you say that you truly are going to be an innovator, then you're also saying I'm going to accept that we're going to fail. And it's one thing to say we're going to accept failure. It's a completely different thing to look somebody in the eyes and say, "Okay, I know you did your absolute best, and it's okay that you failed. We're going to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and we're going to try again." And you have to recognize that the other person's going to need time with that failure,
Yep.
because innovators are also high achievers, and high achievers don't really like to fail. And you and I talk a lot about how how important failure is for growth. I mean, it's you can't have it. Like you can't have one without the other.
You can't. There's no other way.
You can't. And high achievers don't like to admit failure. You know, so along with that culture of innovation and that culture of accepting failure as a pathway to true innovative greatness, you also have to encourage a culture of honesty.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes when people fail, they don't want to admit it. You know, and technology is getting a whole lot better about that. This is another thing that you and I were talking about the other day. You know, as we embrace technologies and as we embrace the ever evolving age of information and analytics, it's so much harder to hide the data. You know, it used to be, hey, you know, maybe I had this small failure and I could kind of brush it under the rug. No one's going to know about it. And, you know, yeah, I'll keep that failure to myself. Right? You know, but that doesn't help anything.
No,
right. The more we have that informative analytics, the more I don't want to say expose is a negative term, but as we expose the gray areas, the better we can adapt.
There you go.
The better we can adapt and the better we can evolve. And AI is going to play a huge part in this too.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, to your point of adapting, this is where, like you said, we have to pivot. And if we have the analytics working for us versus we fighting it, then we can embrace that and know that, hey, we just failed. Look at the analytics, look at the trends. I mean, it's just showing us we need to pivot quickly now.
Yep.
So now we need to pivot, you know, yes, okay, we got lessons learned, make sure we document it, and review everything we did, but now we need to pivot in order to, you know, don't let this be a disaster. And that is so important. And what that reminds me of is Simon Sinek's video that talks about the infinite mindset versus the growth mindset. You know, well, finite mindset versus a growth mindset is you have to allow that in order for you to have that growth mindset. You have to be okay with failures, but you also have to be okay with pivoting quickly from those failures and learning from it.
Yeah. Look, we're all trying to climb mountains here. Right. And as we get to the top of the mountain, that's great. But the growth is in the valley. Right. I read something the other day. It said everybody wants the testimony, but nobody wants the test.
Amen.
Right? Isn't that the truth? I'm as guilty of that as everyone else. Like, yeah. I would love to just have, you know, the reward at the end without having to go through the journey. But the journey is the important part. That's where the good stuff is. And to your point about the analytics, you know, the other piece of it that's so important now, and where technology is taking us to such incredible places, and AI is going to help with this. As long as the information flowing in is good, then the predictive analytics become so much higher. So we can actually predict the outcomes a little bit further and say, okay, this may lead to this failure. This may lead to this success. This may lead to this outcome. And we're getting better predictive information also.
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't say, there's no other way to say it better than when you just said it. We have to have the right data being provided to our systems so that we can use that feature of the predictive, because it'll tell you to a certain percentage of this is what the outcome can be at this percentage. And that's pretty awesome for organizations, and organizations that do not want to really embrace AI and all the analytics. I mean, these organizations are not going to be around.
You're going to get left in the dust.
Yep, they're not going to be around. Let's move on to our second question. And this one, this is a really good one. So research suggests that diversity in teams enhances innovation. How can leaders ensure that their teams are are diverse in thought and background? And how does diversity contribute to a culture of innovation?
Yeah. So I will never underscore the use of personality tests
Oh
or
yeah.
character tests.
Yes.
It helps you. I mean, look, we use predictive index,
Hmm.
right? And
Absolutely.
predictive index, I mean, it tells you, um, it tells you who the analytical people are on your team, it tells you who the mavericks are, it tells you who the outliers are, it tells you who the the strong cognitive thinkers are. I love strength finders.
Mhm.
I think that's another really great one just for personal development. So you understand
Yes.
your strengths and how to grow those. And there's plenty of other ones out there. There's the DISC assessment and things like that. I think those are great building blocks for how do you create diversity on a team. We talked about it on our last podcast that understanding the people in the room
Yes.
and the personality types that you have. Sometimes the quiet person, I mean, you shared it yourself. Sometimes the quiet person that just really absorbs and listens and takes it all in. I remember I was at a leadership retreat with a previous company that I was with, and we all got to pick the teams that we sat together for this exercise. And actually, one of the people that I sat with, you actually know as well, Laura Amendola. But there was
Oh,
it was
Laura is so cool. Yeah.
she's awesome. But
Yeah.
so it was myself, it was Laura, it was a couple other people at this table, and I forget what the exercise was off the top of my head, but it was, we had to do something. Every single one of us at that table were high type A leader,
Of
big personalities. So we didn't get anything done,
course not.
right?
Nobody's
Because
keeping you on task.
right, we're all trying to lead the team,
Yep.
like we're all trying. So really understanding the diversity of your team, it's the only way you make progress, and you have to take the time to do that. Great leaders build great teams. Great leaders don't necessarily have to lead the team. They have to cast vision,
Yes.
right? They have to get the teams to believe in where the company is going, what the
Yes.
product is, all of those types of things. But when they build great teams, it frees them up to do what their strong suits are, frees them up to be creatives and be in the marketplace, pitching the product or whatever their strength is and their role is. So uh, diversity is huge.
Oh man, yeah. Especially for me, it's important to get to know someone and their upbringings because that tells you a lot about that person, those challenges that they had to really persevere through. It tells you a lot about a person, and you want that. And once you have that, and you understand the people in your teams and the struggles that have shaped them to where they are, it just allows you to serve them better because then you
Yeah.
know where to who to put to lead what project depending on those circumstances. It's so important to know your people.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
I mean, we could speak about that in every single one of our talks. It's understanding, knowing your people is so vital to really flourishing in your organizations and leading your teams, because then you get to set them up for success.
Yeah. It's the only way. And sometimes you don't have a lot of time to get to know them. But the relational aspect, it's critically important. If you can't take the time to learn about the people that you're with, that you're side by side with, whether you're side by side with them for 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, you're never going to get the outcomes out of. Let me rephrase that. You're never going to get the respective engagement
Yes.
that you really need out of them to move the innovations forward, right? I mean, like, jokingly, my team a couple of weeks ago, they said, and I work with a lot of kids. I work with a lot of entry level team members, and they said something about this group needs a gang, and I said, "Oh, I've got one already." And they said, "Yeah, you do." Which what they're saying is that
Yep.
they'll follow me into the trenches.
There you go.
They'll follow me anywhere, and it's because of that relational engagement. I know what they're going through in their lives. I know because I've been there with them. I know because I have similar stories to some of them. I know because we talk about their pets or their kids or their grandparents, or just like you said, you learn about them, and I don't have to spend a lot of time with them to get them engaged. And I know who my strong players are, and I know who my weak players are. And it's important for me to put my strong players with my weak players so that they can grow each other.
To your point, and I want to touch upon this on purpose, uh, saying that their struggles, what they're going through. Right now in our world, I think the most important thing that we can do for people is check in on their emotional health.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
and if people are doing what you're doing, this is how we win. This is how we get them the help they need. Because there are people that are suffering in silence and we don't know what those struggles are. But if we get to know them, we will know, right? Because we will be checking in on them. Hey, how's your family? Hey, how's this going for you? How can I support you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I teach with my team is each other better than anyone else.
Yes.
You know each other's personalities. And when someone's off, reach out. They don't have to share anything with you.
Yep.
But I mean, let's make no mistake about it. There is an emotional health crisis.
Yes.
In the world right now. In the world. And I saw something actually this morning that was a little frightening to me. And I'm not a big news person. I try to stay away from that because I like to keep a very healthy, positive mindset. And I feel like the news is a lot of negativity, regardless of my personal opinions on that. I saw something today that said America is on the verge of having a slum issue similar to third world countries. And they're not talking about the dirtiness. They're talking about tent cities. They're talking about a gap that's happening that is widening, and you're seeing it in a lot of places. I remember, so I'm originally from the Seattle area, and Seattle used to be a very beautiful city, and it still is a beautiful city. But I remember the first time that I saw the tent cities off of I-5. And when I say tent cities, I'm not talking about a couple of hundred people. I'm talking about 10 to 15,000 people living in these tent cities. And so when it mentioned the slums this morning, all I could think about is, regardless of the income gap that's happening, there's an emotional health gap that's happening that we started out by saying innovation is like kindness. It never goes out of style, right? Kindness, true kindness, is reaching out to somebody.
Yep.
It's having these interactions. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I know that compassion and kindness is a part of it. And it's as true as it is in these areas of disproportionate poverty. as it is in leading our teams. And I kind of got off on a tangent there, so
No. I mean,
I
no,
apologize about it. But
I know I'm going to continue. I'm going to go even deeper into that rabbit hole because I've actually experienced that in the last few months with a couple of leaders where, well, one, she was, I mean, she is struggling hard with emotional health and emotional issues, and um, she had to quit working full time because of it. That's hard.
yeah,
That's real.
yeah,
But I always reached out. I always, send her a message. Hey, how are you? How can I help you? How can I support you? You know, give her tips. Work on this. Look at this. And I saw her last week, and it was incredible. I mean, she couldn't thank me enough for just encouraging her and supporting her.
yeah.
People need that.
So I keep a running list of notes in my phone, and I just call it notes for growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote something in it this morning, and so it says, the only person responsible for changed behavior is yourself.
Yes.
Others can influence or inspire that change within you, but the act of changing comes from you.
Yep.
And to your point, I mean, we can give tools, we can give insight, we can give hope, we can give a listening ear. Sometimes that's what somebody really needs. We can just sit in silence with somebody, but true change comes from them. To your point.
Yep, absolutely. Well, let's try to get back on on track. Hey, for those of the out there listening to us, this is how we roll.
Yeah, we always do this. We get like 2 questions in, and then it's time to call it an end.
Um, so one of the things that was in that question, going back to that question, is the second half of that question: how does diversity contribute to a culture of innovation? So I've been thinking about this while our conversation has been ongoing. And I remember I love doing research. So for me, that's something that is very near and dear to my heart. Research has shown that diversity spurs creativity and problem solving in a team. And how does it do that? Because you're allowing on a team that it has diversity of thought, different upbringings, different backgrounds, you're allowing for multiple viewpoints and different approaches to tackle any challenges. That in itself spurs creativity.
Absolutely. And you mentioned diversity of thought. Well, there's also diversity of culture, diversity of upbringings.
Yes.
And it can be as close as growing up in the same city,
Yeah.
right? Just for different. I mean, there's that saying, different sides of the track or other sides of the track. Or growing up in different parts of the world. I mean, you grew up in the Dominican Republic. I was born in Kansas and grew up in Seattle. But our diversity of thought comes together when we're having these really creative, how do we grow our leaders, how do we grow this innovation mindset, how do we grow culture, and that just feeds even more into that team dynamic. If you are truly intentional about knowing your people
Yes.
and knowing your team,
Yes.
then that as you build these great teams, that they're going to feed off each other. They're going to feed off their life experiences, their work experiences, their successes, their failures.
Yes.
And how does their life experiences and life knowledge contribute to the overall goal of innovation?
It's all of it, all of it.
Yeah.
The one thing that
Oh,
really, yeah, the one thing that really stood out to me in what you're saying is everyone's experiences and what they bring to the table um, speaks to me in a sense where one of the things that it's important to me is how can I be better today, or what can I learn from someone today? And that's how you do it,
yeah.
by allowing those moments of really getting to know people and listening to their viewpoints and how can they bring something that will challenge me today to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's look, we're all so busy in this world. And you know that my number one guiding principle is that you can't control the first thought that comes into your head, but you can control the second.
Mhm.
And in that, there's so many times where we let the noise of the world and the busyness of the world and everything that's happening in our brains stop us from having that true interaction,
Yes.
to learning that something from someone else, because we all have those preconceived judgments or notions or whatever going on in our head. So, you know, somebody comes up that thinks different than us, and we've already decided,
Yes.
I don't have time for that person today. Right. But that person may just be that thing that you need. That may just be that angel, you know, that's being sent to you to give you a different perspective, to unlock something new, to help you see things in a different way. And
Oh,
it, you're doing yourself a disservice
I, I,
if you go ahead. I see
oh
it.
my God.
I see it bubbling up. I see it bubbling up.
What you're saying. I mean, I've experienced that multiple times where I am like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're just go ahead, say whatever you're gonna say, but it doesn't matter. I already have it made up in my head.
Right, right.
But then that person says a few words, and you're like, oh, and then it's time to backtrace. So, okay, well, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
So many times. It is so vital to allow for everyone to have to say their piece and have a say into what's going on, because you never know, that one person, like you said, will change everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've learned in life that, yeah, you when you're making decisions, especially tough decisions, you want as much information. So you want to hear everyone's point of view so that then you can make a well-informed decision.
That's it. That's it. And when you're talking about innovation, right? I mean, again, this world is moving and
Mhm.
changing so rapidly that if you don't take time to listen to the diverse perspectives that are around you, you may miss the most incredible innovations that are being presented at the table. You know,
Without, yeah, no, you're absolutely correct with that. It's vital. It's really vital to listen. That's, I mean, one of the most important skills a leader can have if they want to be successful
it's
is
active listening.
active listening.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, we've been talking about technology quite a bit, and you know, AI and things like that. And while AI is going to continue to enhance things very rapidly, the one thing that AI will never be able to do is have that human experience,
yep.
the compassion piece. I mean, they've been trying to see if they can get it to experience true human emotion, and it can't. It's not a part of its systemic creation. You know,
Yeah.
it can mimic it, but you can tell. I mean, you can tell that it's not genuine. So genuine human emotion, that genuine human experience, you'll never be able to take that away.
Absolutely
And
no.
and it only comes from one place.
Yep.
It comes from us.
Absolutely. And this is where people are always going to be around.
Yep.
You're gonna need leaders, and leaders at the core, it's about creating other leaders.
Yeah.
It's about that. It's about the people. And you can't have that human connection without humans.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So we still have another question. What do you want to do? You want to dive into it, or you want to save it for the next one? What I'll leave it up to you this time.
We're at what? How long are we in this recording right now? 45 minutes?
Yes.
Oh, you want
Yes.
to keep going? You want to?
It might go longer. Um let's go, and then I'll edit if we need to. All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's roll.
Let's roll. So, continuous improvement is a fundamental aspect of sustaining innovation. What methodologies are and frameworks can leaders adapt to promote continuous improvement within their teams, and how can they balance the need for improvement with the demands of day-to-day operations? This is a big one. Wow. Okay.
So, the saying has been around forever: knowledge is power. Okay. And I think that whether you, whether we're talking about teams or individual growth for continuous improvement, I think one of the most important things people can do is read.
Hey
It,
man, hey man, people,
you
please
know,
read. I know a lot of people don't like reading. Please read.
please read. And however you get that information in, it's so important that one, you have to find balance. Okay, so if you don't like to read books on management styles or leadership styles or things like that, find some sort of book that interests you. And if you don't like to read, listen to it.
Yep.
Listen to an audible or something, but try and get yourself something that pertains to what you do, your area of expertise, or
Yes.
what you're truly passionate about. And yeah, I had a conversation with somebody the other day. It was a dear friend of mine, and she's a little bit older. She's actually at retirement age, but she feels this ingrained passion that she needs to work. And she's been out of work for a while, and she was going back to work. And she called me the night before, and I said, look, if you don't love it, don't do it. Don't do it. And if you do love it, find things that make you love it more. Even at the age of retirement, life is too short to do something that you don't absolutely love. So my very first thing is read, listen to audibles. Number two, for leaders in group settings, I think it's really important to workshop.
Oh yeah.
And there's tons of fun things out there that can be very engaging. Very fun workshops can really open up the minds and the creativity of your teams. But also remember, nobody wants to sit in a meeting all day long. I don't know anyone that gets true joy out of sitting in meetings all day long. I know I don't. You know, I, you want you
Nobody.
want my most creative self. About an hour is the longest you're going to really keep my mind engaged. That's me personally. Some people can go 2 hours, 3 hours. I would say 4 hours is way too long,
Yeah.
but I'm also a very tactile learner. I have to get my hands on things to really get it to sink in and engage. And so again, it's understanding people's learning styles as well.
Yes.
And so sometimes the first workshop should be, what is your learning style? Are you a written learner? Are you an audible learner? Are you a tactile learner? So once you know that, then you can really start to engage your team and get them creative.
Yeah, to your point, if you're going to do a workshop, please do some background information on it. The best workshops are the ones that they do a mixture of lecture and then hands-on or team projects, and really keep you engaged. Like you, I can't. An hour is even a lot for me. You have to engage me in a different way. Within that hour, like make me get up or do something.
Yeah.
You will lose me very quickly. My mind will be somewhere else. So yeah, it has to be very engaging, but it cannot be engaging where it's just person talking there. Engage people in conversations. Engage people in having them really think through what the topic is and giving their point of view, and you can have a better dialogue. Do breakout rooms where people have to go work on the project and then come back and present it.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's how you get people really engaged and working. And then you have to spread out, breaks. People need to, break away from it for a little bit, 10-15 minutes, and then come back.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
One of the things that I was thinking of as we were really looking at continuous improvement, I didn't think about it in the way you thought about it. I mean, your way of thinking was perfect. Reading, absolutely.
Number
Workshops,
one.
yeah.
Number one.
Well, I mean, just to add on to your part, I would say, listen to podcasts, listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't want to read, you can listen to a podcast.
Listen to us.
Yep. But I mean, those are things that you can do. Listen to documentaries. That's
Yep.
important.
Yeah.
Those are ways to learn as well.
Yeah. Find thought leaders that you relate to and listen to their stuff. I mean, there's so many good ones that we've talked a lot about. Simon Sinek on this. Brene Brown.
Brene
You
Brown
want
is
to
powerful.
understand yourself. I mean, oh my gosh, her dissertation on empathy is. I think it should be required listening for every person on the planet. In all honesty.
Yep.
And there's so many good ones. If you haven't found one yet, I guarantee there's somebody out there that you'll relate to, that you will love. Hopefully it's Dr. Amin, Sanaia, and Tanner Thorp.
Yep.
But yeah, documentaries, podcasts, there's so many ways to get good information out there.
Yep.
And then as we're talking about continuous improvement, we were talking in the beginning about innovations. Predictive analytics, as you're getting this information in, how are you checking during the process? Yeah. Right? How are you really gauging the success of the innovation or the project or whatever you're working on? So really having the tools to follow up and follow through. Are you using an agile method? Are you using Lean Six Sigma? Are you really diving in and having these different points where you're saying, okay, this is what we started with in the beginning. This is where we're at now. Does the end goal still meet what our intended goal was, or do we need to rework this real quick? And maybe the end goal shifts. Maybe it changes. Maybe because you have a really great diverse team that you've been engaging with and they're giving all of this great feedback and ideas, that you find out, well, we've got a whole different product here. Maybe we need to scrap that original idea and go this way.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, one of the ones that I love is an oldie, but I mean, it's very soundproof, is the approach of PDCA, which is plan, do, checked, and act. I mean, that cycle, you do that many of times, you're going to get every answer you want. I mean, every answer, you're going to get to it by following that cycle. But those are things that, I mean, those are toolbox tools that you have at your disposal in order to really making sure that, you want to be innovative, but you want to have the continuous improvement and check what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we're getting close to an hour now. So let's do final thoughts here. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. We covered a lot here. As you started out with, I was really excited when I saw the questions
Yeah.
on this, because I, I, I knew it in my bones. This is going to be a 45-minute to an hour conversation, and I'm so proud of the work that we do, Dr. Amin.
Oh, without a doubt, man.
Because you can tell in these questions, in these answers, there's a passion for this, and we've talked about the 5 challenges that leaders face. And look, being a leader is about challenges. It's about tackling challenges. It's about understanding the challenges. It's about having that level-headed approach that says, whatever comes at me, we've got the acumen and strength in our teams to be able to plan, do, check, adjust,
Yep.
and so, as we're ending these 5 leadership challenges, I think we ended on the best one, because what we're talking about here is what gets the juices flowing. We're talking about, how do we really engage our teams? How do we love on our teams? How do we do the things that never go out of style, like kindness? This is where the real growth happens in us. It's where the real growth happens in our teams. It's where the real growth happens in our companies, and it's where the magic happens. So, I think that there's a lot to be said about being innovative, but at the core of all of it, it's about your people.
Yep. Know your people is know your business.
That's right.
No,
Amen.
no other way around that. Wow, how do I follow that up? Woo.
Like you always do, with
Oh,
with incredible intelligence and great insight.
thank you for those kind words. Well, two things. Because as you were speaking, I was like, okay, my mind's firing. So I have a impromptu announcement at the end, but let me conclude our 5 leadership challenges. I'm going to recap the 5 of them real quickly. So number 1, we talked about inspiring and motivating your team. That was such a powerful conversation. Where we talked about how leaders must discover how to ignite intrinsic motivation within their teams. That was really, if you haven't listened to it, you probably want to go back and listen to that. Then we went into navigating uncertainty and ambiguity. Woo, those rough seas, man. And for people like Tanner and myself that are really mavericks and like to do things a little bit different, that's our wheelhouse right there.
Yeah.
But that's
Oh
not
yeah.
for everybody. It really is not. So that is something, that a challenge that leaders nowadays must face, because if your organization is not trying different things, it's going to be hard, and you can't do that unless you're comfortable being uncomfortable. And
Yep.
I know that was a big piece of that conversation. From there, we went to addressing conflict and managing difficult relationships. Wow, that conversation was powerful. Because both of us, you have so much on those topics.
Yeah, we do.
I mean, we can go back and redo it, and it'll be totally different, but it'll be just as
Just as
exciting.
powerful.
Yep. But yeah, leaders, as leaders, we must harness conflict as a constructive force. How do we do that? How do we use that to be a positive, and not use it in a negative connotation? From there, we went to I think this one, I'm gonna put it out there. But the making tough decisions and taking bold action, I think that was the best conversation we had. Uh,
Yeah, you think so?
oh, absolutely. I've listened to all of them, and I'm like, man, that one was pretty cool. That one was pretty cool. So in high stakes situation, as a leader, you have to buckle up. You have to make decisions. And sometimes leaders don't want to make those decisions, but then those decisions are made for you. And it's probably not the right decisions. So, yes, as a leader, we must face head on when we're really tasked with, those hard decisions. And then today was a really fun conversation. Um, it's just for us a culture of innovation and continuous improvement. I mean, we embrace that all day
Oh
long,
yeah,
every day,
all day long.
all day long. Failure for us is celebrated as a path to growth. For us, we don't see that as something that's bad. No, one failure is just one step closer to success. So
That's right.
bring it on. So throughout this series, it was so much fun going through the different ones. I think we couldn't have laid it out in a better way, and it wasn't on purpose. It just, as I was doing research, I'm like,
Just how we roll.
this is what it is. Let's go. So it was so much fun doing this. Before we end, though, I want to say to our audience, stick around because I am going to say this and I'll put it out there and we'll see what my tag team partner here says. But I think we should do a 3-part series on emotional health next.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Let's do it. There
Right.
it is. That's what's next.
All right. So there you have it. Stick around.
We're gonna get really real in those.
Yep, stick around because it's going to be some really hard conversation, but we're going to bring you a lot of tips and we're going to bring you a lot of information to empower you to be the best leaders you can be for your people, whether that is in an organization or at home. It's a pleasure, as always, being with my brother here, Tanner Thorp. Have a lovely rest of your week. And we'll see you here in a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Have a blessed day.